Welcome to the With Honors podcast. Our guest today is Audra Pleasant, and we've got her here to answer this question.
Okay, Dr. Sandlin, if you could only leave the U.S. and go to 3 countries, each for 1 week during the span of your life, which 3 countries should you go to, why, and in what order?
So, Audra, you're the obvious guest for this because you're the director of international programs at Harding.
Yes,
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me. This is such a hard question.
Yeah? Because, okay, how many countries have you been to?
42.
I've not been to 42 states.
Well, I don't know if I have either. I would have to check. I didn't count that before coming in today.
42 countries.
I try to go to a country for every year I've been alive. And so I'm ahead a little bit right now.
Of course.
I got behind, well, not just barely, but I got behind for a couple years. So then I got caught up. And so I'm trying to stay ahead of my age.
Wow. How many continents? All of them except Antarctica?
Yes, 6.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
All right. That's very impressive. How old were you when you first left the U.S.? You grew up in Montana, is that right?
Yes, I grew up in Montana. That is a good question. I was trying to remember this because I, for some reason, thought you might enjoy a story of my middle school humiliation.
Middle school, okay, all right.
I live very close to the Canadian border. And so I remember the first country I ever visited other than the U.S. was Canada. We maybe drove 3 hours, and we visited a historic town, you know, one of those, like, towns where all the performers dress up and they pretend like they're from pioneer times.
I do not know. Like you say, you know that. Like I've encountered that.
I feel like
that's a new thing to me, but it's cool.
You would enjoy.
Oh yeah, it sounds like very fun.
Like okay,
I would do that.
Yes, I visited this town and they're all in their bonnets and boots and there's a blacksmith and you know it's very cute. And
like Silver Dollar City, but a whole town.
Yes, exactly. It was called Fort Steele, Canada, and it was very fun. But the thing I remember the most about it is in the gift shop there was a copy of Harry Potter because I'm old enough that Harry Potter had just come out way back then. And it was a different title because in Canada, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's
Stone, the English
was
title,
the first book. And that has always stuck with me, which is strange, but I think it's one of the first times I realized that not everyone in the world does things the same way. And it really made me want to know more about why.
Now that's a cool story.
Why was the book title different in the gift shop at Fort Steele, Canada?
And you drove there from Montana?
Yes.
First time on a plane?
The first time I ever went on a plane was to Disneyland when I was in 8th grade.
That's California, Disney,
in California.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
And then the first time I left the United States on a plane, I was with Gordon and Jane Hogan on a global outreach trip to Singapore.
That's a big one.
When I was a freshman, yeah.
My first time to leave the country was also Canada.
Okay.
I was in the 9th grade, 10th grade, I think, and we drove from BB, Arkansas to Ontario, to Toronto.
That's a long drive.
Actually, a little town outside. Yeah, it was a youth group thing.
Okay.
And very fun. You know, I remember like sitting at the little Sunday night Devo where they're like, we're thinking about taking a little mission trip to Canada, and being like, it was like they said we're going to Mars to me.
Right.
I was just like, we're going to go where? Well, there's no way I can go. I'm just a little kid, and there was no Northern Lights, alas.
Oh no!
But it was very different. Certainly the biggest city I'd ever been to at that time. And I went to Canada again on a spring break mission trip when I was a student here. But my first time to ever get on an airplane, I was 25 years old, I think. And my first flight ever was to Abuja, the capital of Nigeria. And so my first out-of-the-country trip was Nigeria.
Did you have a nice time?
There were things I loved about it. Yeah. I liked the idea of going to Africa. And, of course, you know, I think like tons of unsophisticated Americans, I thought of Africa as one place.
Sure.
And I thought about lions and giraffes and, of course, my favorite animal, the rhino. And I really wanted to see all those things. I did not see any rhinos.
No.
No, it was a great tragedy. I did see lots of, like, police officers with huge machine guns. That was an unexpected thing to me. And I remember being scared most of the trip, like being pretty nervous. Yeah. But I liked the missionary people I was with and did some good work. And I stayed, we were there like 2.5 weeks. It was a long trip also.
That was very brave of you for your first flight ever.
Well, I was pretty scared, but I was excited. And then I went to several more mission trips. Most of my travel early on was mission trips to Central America then. Like I went to Nicaragua and then Honduras and then Belize. And so like Nigeria in terms of like fun, nice, safe, pleasant experience, I've only gone up. And then I got hooked up with you and international programs. And then I went to Greece, which was pretty nice. And then Italy, which was really nice.
Yeah.
And then I went to Switzerland, and it was the like prettiest of all.
You've peaked.
So now I sort of think, well, I guess I'll just stay home.
All right. Well,
42 countries.
I would like you to not tell Switzerland that you think Cersei is equivalent, but
Oh, not equivalent, just sort of like I've seen the best, so
you just got to say it
now
now.
I'll just I
Okay.
mean, what am I going to see now?
There's lots out there. I can give you a list.
So you went on to Singapore. That's
I did.
that's a crazy long trip
I
as a
know.
student with global outreach and mission
did.
sort of trip.
My suite mate, freshman year, which was all potluck, which was incredible. I think Harding believes possibly that Montana is another country because I was put with all international students, which was such a cool experience for me.
Oh, wow.
Freshman year in Stevens Hall, and it was amazing. And I still am friends with a lot of those girls, but one of them was from Malaysia. And so she said, hey, why don't you come on this global outreach trip to Singapore with me, and then we'll go see my house in Malaysia afterwards. And I said, sign me up.
Yeah, that sounds
like
awesome.
a great time.
Plus to have a guide, somebody who like that's a big thing in international travel is
Right.
somebody who knows what's up to help
Absolutely.
shepherd you along. Yeah.
And so that was really special, and I'm thankful that worked out.
Did you do other trips when you were in college?
I studied abroad in Greece, and so I did that my sophomore year, and then I went on a few other short-term mission trips to Mexico, and I think that's about it for Audra's college career.
And then you have started really traveling a lot when you started working with international programs, or doing just on your own because you love travel?
I do love to travel, so I've always been a traveler. I think I grew up and didn't have a lot of money, which was fine, and I didn't know I didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
So bless my parents' hearts for never really correcting me on that, because I would often ask things like, could I go to a Swiss boarding school next year? Would that be fine? I just think that would be really fun. And they would be like, no, that's not going to work out, Audra. And so, and that's not, most people in the United States can't afford to go to a Swiss boarding school next year. But it was very sweet to me how I never thought travel was out of reach, even though I lived in a very rural town in the middle of Montana and did not have the resources to go very many places. So I still somehow had that value instilled in me, and I have traveled a lot since. Most of the time, I don't tell people when I travel if it's for me, because I think that a lot of my job is very visible and makes me very accessible. So that's a part of my life that I enjoy not making very accessible to people. I think the whole Harding student body has my cell phone number, and I want them to, and I want them to call me every time they have a flight delay, and I will fix it for them. But I also enjoy getting to experience new things for myself.
Just on your own.
Or with friends and family. And so I think I've always enjoyed that part of it. Now, part of my job is travel, and that's very different. And it's still very enjoyable. But now when I'm in an airport, I'm like making note of every single help desk and airport hotel and luggage storage area and where's the train stop. And that kind of travel is very different. And it's still really enjoyable. And I enjoy never being bored when I'm somewhere. There's always something for me to grow in and learn about and make sure I'm better equipped for the next time I have a traveler in that spot.
All right, let me ask you something that is related to the question. We are going to get to your question, Maggie, eventually at the end. But let me ask you this, because you travel so much. So when I'm traveling, the things that I'm like not very good at is the logistical, I have to think ahead about this flight to this flight. And so I love working with, traveling with IP, because Audra just does all that for me, which is the best. Or with my wife, who does all that for me. And she is very good.
Yes.
But then I don't stress out too much about, am I going to miss the flight? I just, I figure it's all going to work out. But like, what are some skills you think, okay, when I was young and traveling, like maybe early on when you were going places on your own, you weren't as good. And now you're like, really, you could go anywhere in the world with a lot of confidence, I would think, at this point, 42 countries.
So. Yeah.
What are the skills you say, to be a good traveler, you got to learn this and this?
That's a good question. One thing I've gotten better at is not being afraid to spend money to solve problems. And I don't mean a vast amount of money. When I was even in my 20s, when I was traveling, I would never pay to have a cell phone plan. I would never pay for just small conveniences. And I realize now how much time I wasted being lost and not actually enjoying my experience because I have no innate sense of direction, which is very ironic. So I could spend a day wandering around this building trying to find this room. I got lost coming to this room. So I realize now refusing to spend $10 to access information and really was a huge mistake. And now I work for Harding University. I'm a good steward of the money Harding has, but there are so many small problems that you can solve immediately and reduce friction for students by just knowing the resources available and not being afraid to take advantage of them. And often that's just asking for help, but sometimes that can just be paying to solve a problem.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Because I know when I'm traveling away, I'm thinking about the stuff I want to do, get the most out of the trip, but also be careful with the money because, when you're on a trip, money can just begin to, like a sieve, fall away. And you get back, you're like, what did I spend all this money on? But if you spend your whole trip trying to figure out how to manage your money, you didn't enjoy the trip. Exactly. You didn't have it.
Exactly.
So, all right, asking for help, knowing to use resources and stuff. Tell me about a trip you went on that was hellacious, that was just really bad.
Ooh, that's such a good one.
I'm sure all the countries you visited are wonderful, and we're not saying anything bad about any country.
I think I really have enjoyed all the chances I have had to visit somewhere. A lot of my job, I like to describe, and this is gross, but not a curse word, is running towards the vomit. And so I feel like if I meet people and I feel like you are a person who runs towards the vomit when you hear it happening, you don't run the other way, that's a person I want to work with. Because
clean the vomit up, I think is the implication here.
Yeah,
okay.
To solve the problem.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always have to be vomit, but that's just kind of an easy to remember example. So a lot of my job involves solving problems for people, and I really love that part of my job. But that also means that I am the one to figure out, to hold the bag with the vomit and to find the doctor and to solve the problem. So I don't think I can think of a trip that's been hellacious, but there are trips where very rarely do I feel like I do my job for the money. And occasionally That's
probably very good given where you work.
True, absolutely. But there are occasional days where I think, well, today I worked. And that's fine because it is my job and I want to do it very well, even if I'm not enjoying it. But typically it involves some sort of crisis, whether that's health crisis, people have dark days, and some of those situations are difficult to navigate. And so those are the low points. But that's going to happen in Searcy, Arkansas too.
That's right.
So most of my responsibility for catching vomit happened to not be in Searcy, Arkansas, but I'll happily do it. So those are the moments I'm thinking of, like leaving a bus on the side of the road with a student and it going on without us and me finding a taxi because they can't stop throwing up and things like that. Those are fine. We all survived. We all laughed about it later. But in the moment, those aren't anybody's favorite travel moments. Yeah,
mine was some of the worst international trips.
Yeah.
It was health related. We were doing a medical mission trip in Nicaragua, and the water in the hotel ran out. They ran out of water because it was rain supplied and so forth. And so we couldn't shower and all that. And then it rained one day. And so we just went outside and showered like under a downspout, just the rainwater falling. We're just all out there in shorts or whatever, washing our hair. But what we didn't realize is that apparently you can get E. coli from that sort of thing. So me and my wife and my friend Tommy all got a pretty bad case of E. coli.
Oh, no.
Which is a stomach-related illness, which is the kind that I hate most.
Oh.
And then there was still no water in the hotel.
That's horrific.
So the toilets wouldn't flush, and remember the three of us were kind of quarantined. We're all in one bedroom.
Yeah.
And they turned off all the other toilets in the building so this one could have all the water that would come in. And we were three of us laying in a double bed, like just trying to breathe. And there was a television, but it only had Spanish channels. Yeah. And so we were watching an old HBO show on the TV in Spanish. None of us speak Spanish. And about every 15 minutes, somebody has to dash to the restroom, and then we begin to just pray the toilet will flush. And this lasted for like a day and a half.
That is a very long
It was the worst trip. It was the worst trip.
I'm so sorry.
But that was not a Harding University trip. And all my Harding trips have been great. They've all been wonderful, as you students, all of yours will only be
I do
wonderful.
not provide E. coli, so you'll have to travel with Dr. Sandlin if you would like that experience.
I heard a professor tell the story that they went to on an international trip with Harding, and I think they were in Egypt maybe, and all the students had a stomach bug.
Yes.
But they had to get on the plane.
Yeah.
But everyone had pretty severe diarrhea.
Yeah.
And they couldn't keep down any oral medication and had to have suppository medication. And this was
Wow.
This was a story that he told me once, and I thought, well,
I won't be doing that.
I guess they got to be close with those professors, and I thought, I think I would have just missed the flight.
Wow. Yeah.
So if those are low points.
Those are low points.
Standing on the side of a street while the bus drives away and your student's vomiting, whatever. What are ones you go, but this was one of the best?
That's a good question. I think anytime I can see a student grow, and that can be very different for each student. Some students experience enormous growth while they're traveling and they're studying abroad, and they're very intentional about that, and that's really amazing. But I'm thinking of also just the students that have never been on a plane before. And the first time they get on a plane, they go to another country, and it's really scary, but they start to become confident and they start to feel like, I can do this. And they those are the coolest moments to me, which again, those can happen in Cersei. I just think being out of your comfort zone is a really natural environment to grow quickly and to gain confidence. And so to me, that's why I do my job, is because I feel like I get to see that all the time and it's working, and I want to keep providing those experiences to students. Personally, I think the things that catch me by surprise are my favorites. They're not always something spectacular, but anytime I can experience like a new place or a new site, or I'm touched by the story of the people who created a site, I don't think I'm a calloused person, but because I have experienced a lot of things, and when I'm traveling, I so often am only focused on the logistics, the things that can break through and like impact me emotionally always stand out because they're just my favorites. So we took a architecture group to around the world once, which was really cool. It's a really amazing experience. But when we were in Hiroshima, that really impacted a lot of us. And I just remember sitting outside the hotel on the curb, like almost all night, just like thinking about it, because I wasn't prepared to contemplate what had happened there and to process it. So that will always stand out to me as a really special moment in travel, not because it was a good thing, but because it impacted me in a way I wasn't expecting, and it's always stayed with me.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful.
Yeah.
I think I've done a lot of great trips, and I love also, one of the things that I like about you, Audra, and that I think that when we work together, we always say this, is when I ask, what did you love about travel? You started talking about watching students grow, which is actually not about travel. It's about these other people. And when I'm going on these trips, what I'm always thinking about is, well, who am I going with? What are the students going to experience? And so I do, like, if you're listening, I do think this is something special about Harding International Programs, is the deep commitment to students and recognizing that sometimes I think people think about travel like it's this magical thing. There's that hilarious SNL sketch from years ago where Adam Sandler's like an Italian tour guide, and he says, we can take you to the Amalfi Coast. We cannot make you look good in a bathing suit. You're still going to be you on vacation and all that stuff. Yeah. But travel just, I think, sort of like puts you in positions where you can have real experiences that you weren't expecting, like you're talking about Hiroshima or whatever. Yeah. For me, that was, I'd gone to Switzerland to speak at a conference, and then because we were there, Jenny and I just took a train over to Paris, which we'd never been to Paris before, and I love Paris. Yeah. And I remember going in the Louvre and, I'd seen all these things. And I'd actually heard the Louvre was overwhelming and you're not really going to love it. Don't try and do it if you're only there in a day. To which I say, that is crazy.
Right.
If you have an hour, you should go. If you have 3 days, go just hang out there. But walking around and then seeing the Rubens Room were these huge, they're really, really big pieces of art. And they're pieces that I'd loved for years, but only ever seen on a phone. And realizing there's texture to these and things that don't communicate digitally. Those are some of the things that I think about. All right, so I'm looking at our time. We've not answered Maggie's question at all.
All right.
3 countries.
Only 3
Only
countries.
3. You can only go to 3 outside the U.S. for the rest of your life.
And only for a week each.
Is that what it said?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a really well-worded question. My props to the question asker.
She's really good.
Because that's... do you want to say all of yours, or do you want to go back and forth?
Let's go back and forth. That'll be
I
fun.
only have one, so that's good for me. I can think of my other 2. Okay. Now that I know the parameters, I think Greece has to be one of them because that has always been a special place to me because I studied abroad there. And I think I'd be very sad if for my whole life I never visited again. I guess in this world, we're saying... I don't really know the world in which we're living in answering this question, but let's say it starts today. I would be very sad if I never saw Greece again. Yeah. So 1 week in Greece, that's my first.
And you have friends there?
It's true.
Yeah, that's
There's
great.
always some dishes I can wash. It's good for me.
That's also neat because it's someplace you've been a lot of times.
It's true.
And you say, no, that's where I want to go, not a new place. Okay, that's interesting. My first answer is the UK, and I think it's a little bit of cheating because if I were thinking about trips when I go on, I'd like to go to England. I'd like to go to Scotland. I'd like to go to Ireland.
So you're saying the whole
But it's like saying, I'll visit the U.S. Well, that's like kind of a continent, but...
That's good.
So I want to go to the U.K., especially if I'm there for a week, because they speak English. Okay. And I'm assuming in this thing that I don't have a guide to help me.
Okay.
Audra's not coming with me to make all the logistics work.
Well, I'll ask Maggie later.
So my first answer is that, and I've never been there. I've never been to England, and I would like to. So much of the history I like, and museums are the thing I get excited about when I'm traveling. So that's my first answer.
Okay. My second one, I think, has to be Antarctica, because...
Is Antarctica a country?
I'm not sure.
I don't know the answer to that.
I guess we'll check later. I get a fourth one later if it turns out to not be a real answer.
Okay.
Just because I feel like that's so out of reach. There's like ethical concerns with traveling there. There's monetary concerns with traveling there. I don't know that that's ever going to be in my lifetime, something I could do. But if I only get to pick 3 things for the rest of my life, then I want to go to the 7th continent. That has to be one of my
ethical
answers.
Because of the environmental stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a long trip.
And just I think there's become a lot of interest in traveling there. So, that's something that happens all over the world. Overcrowding is a big problem, and it changes the nature of the place.
In the Louvre, it happens.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's not just there, but I don't know. I think that's one of my 3.
Okay. I was going to say, I'll say my second one is Japan.
Ooh, yeah.
I've never been to Japan. Partly the distance on the flight is scary to me, but I've gotten much better. I used to hate being on a plane, and now I just get in kind of like a Zen state. I say, I'm a leaf on the wind. I'm not even here. I'm just sitting in this seat. I have no options. Nothing could be other than it is, and that's been very helpful to me. But I love Japanese history, especially like feudal Japan, and I read these books about it, and I want to see the cherry blossoms. And I love the aesthetic of Japan, that it has that Asian, like what you'd find in China, but it's its own thing. And the fact that it's an island has made it so unique. And anyway, I like old Japanese culture, and I would love to... if I'm there for a week, I can see the cherry blossoms. I can go to some classic architectural places, but I can also do Fuji, which I would love to do, and go watch a blacksmith work. They have these modern blacksmiths who do these ancient steel folding techniques, and I'd nerd out on that stuff. So Japan is my number 2 answer.
Number 2. Okay.
This is the last country you ever get to visit.
In my whole life.
Yeah.
That's really tricky. I think it has to be somewhere I haven't been. And apparently now I can only live till 44, so I've just announced something big to the world. I think I'm going to pick Indonesia, which is just somewhere I know nothing about. I don't know anything about it. It's a huge country. It's a diverse country. I've heard it's very beautiful. But something that's good for me when I travel, if I'm doing it for the reasons I want other people to travel, is it needs to be something that challenges me, that transforms me. So I want to put myself in a place that's very unknown, that I don't know much about it, but it will likely have an impact on me. And so I'm going to pick Indonesia.
I was going to say Austria because I think I would love the mountains and the beauty and the cultural history and so many castles and great stuff like that. So I said Austria and Germany. But then we started talking earlier about the Louvre in Paris, and I thought, oh no, I'll just go to Paris for a week. I loved
you have
it
to go
so
see
much.
it one more time in your life.
Yeah. There's so much food I haven't eaten in Paris. I've only been in like maybe 20 of the cheese shops there. That's not enough.
That won't do.
So I think I have to say France. And I've not been to the south of France either. And I think I would like all of that
Yeah,
too.
you have the
Or
whole
Normandy.
country.
I've never been to Normandy.
Yeah. You only have a week. We'll get you a fast train.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. Well,
We'll get you a
just spend
driver.
Yeah, I might just spend like 5 days in Paris and then scooch over to Normandy.
Okay.
So that's our plan. There, we've got it locked down. If Maggie's world happens, there we
Right.
are.
Please let me know, Maggie, if your world happens. I will be devastated. But I do think it is a good question.
Well, thanks for being with us, Audra. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you next time on With Honors.